I'm very interested in immigrant families or any family that comes from a complicated, multi-layered background, and interested in the ways in which we respond to memory and amnesia differently depending on which generation we come from. So when you look at the elderly in these families, usually they're the ones who have experienced the biggest hardships, sometimes even traumas. But they do not talk about the past. It doesn't mean they have forgotten the past. They have not. It's just they don't know how to talk about it. So it sits inside their chests, unspoken, all those words, waiting. And then the second generation, they don't talk about the past either, but for a completely different reason, because they don't have time for the past. They don't have energy for the past. They have to be forward-looking, future-oriented. They need to find their feet, build a new life. It has to be tabula rasa. But that leaves the third or the fourth generations in these families. Sometimes the youngest in these families today are the ones who are asking the deepest, the sharpest questions about not only family stories, but also family silences. They want to know about their ancestral heritage. You might come across a young person carrying old memories. Why? Because they did the digging. I believe in every family there's at least one memory keeper. So there might be like 4 siblings, but only one of them does the memory keeping. Why that person and not the other? Who knows? I would like to hope and believe that writers, novelists are the memory keepers of their societies, of their eras. And I say this as a writer who comes from Turkey, which of course, as you know, has a very long and rich history, but that doesn't necessarily translate into strong memory. If anything, we are a society, we're a nation of collective amnesia. Our entire relationship with the past is full of ruptures. And when you have those pockets, the void is almost instantly filled in by a very grandiose, ultra-nationalistic, ultra-religious, imperial nostalgia that talks about always the glorious past and so on. But the moment you start asking seemingly small questions, what was the Ottoman Empire like for women? What was it like in the 17th century for a prostitute who had no means, who had no power, or for a peasant woman who had no access to privilege, or for a concubine in the harem? Then there's a silence. Or the moment you ask, what was the empire like for an Armenian silversmith, or for a Jewish miller, or for an Arab peasant, or for a Kurdish farmer, or a Greek sailor? Again, there's a silence. So I think if we are interested in those forgotten stories, and I think you have to become a bit like a linguistic or cultural archaeologist, and you need to dig deep through layers of stories, but also through layers of silences. I think most of the history that we are taught at school in Turkey is his story, meaning the stories of a few sultans and Shaykhul Islams, and that's about it. And I'm always drawn to what has been forgotten, buried, discarded, or pushed to the periphery. There's a type of masculinity that is being almost imposed from above. It's almost like a straitjacket. And I think if you are the kind of man, especially the kind of young man, who doesn't fit into that straitjacket of masculinity, life can also be very difficult for you as a young man. And this, I believe, is going to be one of the most important conversations for the next phase of feminism, to connect with young men coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. It's a very difficult moment right now. We're living in the age of angst. And it's very difficult also for young people of all backgrounds. I come from a country where I've seen how patriarchy restricts and confines and suppresses women. But I also want to add that patriarchy makes men unhappy, especially the kind of man who doesn't want to conform into these codes of masculinity. So we have to open up this conversation. I'm very interested in intersectional feminism, the kind of feminism that also goes hand in hand with LGBTQ+ rights, but also wants to connect with men, particularly young men from disadvantaged backgrounds, who also feel very left out and left behind in today's world. So instead of withdrawing into boxes, can we open up these conversations? Can we connect? And can we go beyond these dualities? Is something that very much speaks to my heart. In the age of populism, populist demagoguery, we're constantly pushed into dualities. Of us versus them. There's a reason for that. I think autocrats, demagogues, they love it when we are divided like that. So how do we dismantle dualistic way of thinking is also a question that matters a lot to me.